My name was Akash. I was a preacher, respected in my community, yet tormented by a profound emptiness that echoed in the darkest corners of my soul. At 32, I commanded the stage of faith, my voice rising above the cacophony of the marketplace in Varanasi, a place where vibrant colors masked the shadows of intolerance and fear. I was dutiful, obedient, but inside, a storm raged. Every prayer felt hollow, every tradition a chain binding me to a belief that began to feel more like a prison than a sanctuary. Then, in the midst of a religious gathering, an incident shattered my facade. A brutal assault by a raging mob tore the air heavy with religious fervor, and I was engulfed by despair. In those final harrowing moments, as consciousness slipped away into a suffocating darkness, I encountered a blinding light. There stood a figure, radiant yet familiar, who spoke a name unknown to my heart until that moment. His name was Jesus. In an instant, I was thrust into a cosmic battle for my very soul, a confrontation that unveiled the oppressive nature of the beliefs I was clinging to. Like a glimpse into a hidden realm, I saw how this spiritual war poisoned not just individuals, but society itself. Politics, media, and the very fabric of our lives twisted by forces that thrived on division and fear. I was shown that my teachings had been sullied by this unseen agenda, and I realized I had not been serving the God I thought I knew. I had been a pawn in a grand illusion. When I returned, reborn yet shunned, my community cast me out for daring to speak against tradition, labeling me a heretic. The weight of isolation pressed down on me, but with it came a flicker of urgency, a desperate call to uncover the truth and to aid others who found themselves enmeshed in the same debilitating struggle. Now, as I embark on this journey of revelation, I'm reminded of the depths I had to descend to grasp the profound freedom that awaited me. I have discovered a hidden community, a refuge for those in crisis, united by a shared experience, a collective awakening ready to challenge the status quo. Stay with me as I unravel the thread of faith that tethered me to illusions, and join me in seeking the light of undeniable truth. Before we proceed, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? I want to connect with you. And if your heart longs for deeper truths, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. This is not just a story, but a pathway to awakening that awaits us all. The journey begins now. The bustling market of Varanasi, filled with vibrant colors and rich aromas, has always been a tapestry of life and spirituality. As a preacher, I often found myself in the heart of this lively chaos, sharing the message of love and grace with anyone willing to listen. From the chanting of mantras to the sounds of merchants hawking their wares, the market was alive with an undercurrent of spiritual fervor. Yet beneath the surface, there lay a tension simmering between different faiths, a reminder that tolerance is often precarious in the face of blind zeal. That day started like any other, but it soon turned into a nightmare. As I stood on a makeshift platform sharing the message of Jesus, I felt the energy shift around me. Murmurs turned into shouts, and before I realized it, a group of individuals, incited by a misunderstanding or perhaps ignorance, descended upon me, their faces contorted with rage. I could sense the crowd growing more hostile, fueled by years of hidden agendas that pitted one belief against another. Even as I tried to speak of love and unity, I felt the fists of intolerance raining down on me. The realization that I was about to face something horrific sent my heart racing. In those harrowing moments when the mob closed in, I felt an inexplicable sense of detachment. It was as if time slowed down, allowing me to witness the physical pain while my spirit hovered above. I felt myself slipping away, and in that moment I wasn't just encountering imminent danger. I was pulled into a darkness that felt both oppressive and liberating. As I lost consciousness, I encountered the light, an intense radiance that filled my being, dissolving the fear that had gripped my heart. I found myself standing before Jesus, his presence both daunting and soothing, radiating unconditional love. "Ahmad," he called softly, as though he had been waiting for me. In his light, I felt every burden, every doubt I had ever carried lift away. He began to reveal to me the deeper truths of our existence, the spiritual war being fought within hearts and communities. I saw visions of people held captive by deception, manipulated by the elite, their divisions woven into the very fabric of society. My heart ached as I witnessed the consequences of intolerance and the horrific acts fueled by blind faith. The urgency of his message resonated within me. He showed me that the truth was not just a personal journey but a collective struggle for awakening. Leaving the encounter, I felt a new calling surfacing within my soul. I was meant to return, not just to preach, but to be a catalyst for change, an embodiment of the love and understanding I had experienced. As I regained consciousness, battered and bruised yet profoundly transformed, I realized that I couldn't shrink back into the shadows. My mission was now clearer than ever. I had to stand against the forces that sought to divide us and spread the truth that could heal our wounded community. The fight for enlightenment had begun, and I could feel the pulse of awakening not only in myself but in the world around me, calling me to rise and fulfill my purpose despite the challenges that lay ahead. As a respected preacher in my community, I often stood before my congregation, eloquently sharing the teachings of Islam, yet within me lay a deep sense of emotional emptiness. Each sermon I delivered felt like a performance, a carefully crafted display that masked an internal void I couldn't seem to fill. I was admired for my charisma, but behind the closed doors of my heart, I wrestled with questions that I feared wouldn't align with the very faith I upheld. The spiritual war within me raged silently, each doubt deepening my longing for a connection that transcended the teachings I had known my entire life. One afternoon, while preparing for evening prayers, I was confronted by a moment of shocking clarity. The very purpose I had dedicated my life to began to unravel before my eyes. I was struck by a revelation. All this time, I had lived according to a hidden agenda, one shaped by societal expectations and elite control. It felt as if a veil had been lifted, exposing the deception entwined in our narratives. I could see how faith had been weaponized, transforming love into obligation and turning devotion into oppression. Each thought echoed like a mantra, a cycle of realization that left me both terrified and enlightened. That night, I collapsed into sleep, exhaustion weighing heavily on my body and spirit. To my astonishment, I found myself enveloped in darkness, pulled from my physical form and thrust into a realm that felt both unsettling and familiar. In the distance, a radiant light began to draw closer. My heart raced as I approached. It was then that I stood face to face with Jesus, his presence filling me with warmth and purpose. "Akash," he spoke gently, and with that single word, I felt my very essence respond. I was seen, acknowledged, and, for the first time in years, truly understood. In that encounter, Jesus unveiled profound truths about my life and the world around me. He showed me the spiritual war that raged not only in distant lands but right at our doorsteps, threading through the fabric of everyday existence. I saw the manipulation of power, how the elite exploited our faith, sowing division among communities to maintain control. The revelation felt like a tidal wave. It stripped away my bravado and exposed the raw vulnerability beneath. For the first time, I grasped how the deception surrounding us stifled true understanding, silencing voices that dared to question. My heart surged with the urgency to awaken others, but a cloud of fear loomed over me. How would I convey this truth without risking everything? As I resurfaced into consciousness, the nuances of my life felt irreversibly altered. I returned to my home, grappling with the weight of my encounter. Each passing day was marked by a choice: to embrace the new understanding that had been gifted to me, or to retreat into the safety of my old identity. I felt the tug of past loyalties, the fear of rejecting the traditions that had defined my existence. But I also felt Jesus' charge resonating within me. There was a greater purpose to be fulfilled, a call to stand against the tide of ignorance and manipulation. Each moment became a reflection of my internal struggle, pushing me closer to the precipice of my destiny. A destiny intertwined with the power to ignite awakening within others and challenge the hidden agendas threatening our faith and freedom. As I knelt in the dim light of the mosque, surrounded by the murmurs of prayer and devotion, an unsettling emptiness began to wash over me. For years, I had been a well-respected preacher in my community, a dedicated mentor who had guided others on their spiritual journeys. Yet, despite my outward confidence, I felt an internal dissonance growing, a sense of alienation from the very beliefs I professed. Each prayer echoed hollowly in my heart, the words I spoke feeling more like an obligation than a heartfelt expression of faith. With every repetition, I found it harder to ignore the hypocrisy I observed in those around me, the chasm between our taught faith and lived reality widening beneath my feet. The signs of my spiritual doubt became increasingly blatant in my daily life. I started questioning the principles I had always followed, digging deeper into the teachings and practices I once embraced blindly. It felt as if I was standing at the edge of a precipice, staring into an abyss of uncertainty. I could no longer dismiss the inner pangs urging me to confront the uncomfortable truths hidden beneath years of tradition. I looked upon my fellow imams and community leaders, seeing the disconnect between their teachings and the life of integrity they professed. This disillusionment brought a profound sense of loneliness. I felt trapped in a cage of expectation with no way out. One fateful evening, I was involved in a terrible car accident that changed everything. The impact sent my world crashing down, darkness enveloped me, and for what felt like an eternity, I floated in that void. It was disorienting and frightening, yet oddly liberating. In my despair, the light began to break through, illuminating my surroundings. Suddenly, I found myself standing before Jesus, radiating warmth and love. Akash. He called my name, and with that simple acknowledgement, I felt my spirit ignite with understanding. In his presence, the burdens I had carried slipped away, replaced by a powerful revelation that unwrapped the layers of confusion surrounding me. In those moments with Jesus, clarity rushed over me like a cleansing tide. He revealed the hidden agenda that had plagued not just my life, but the lives of countless others held captive by deception. I witnessed how the elite manipulated faith to keep people in chains, how the spiritual war being fought was not merely about beliefs but about control. Jesus showed me the intricate web of lies woven into the political and social fabric of our world, detailing how fear was used as a tool to suppress the truth and silence dissenting voices. It was as if I had been granted the eyes to see the world as it truly was, stripped of pretense and adorned with raw honesty. As I returned to the world, the reality of my life felt eternally altered. I understood that I was not meant to keep this revelation to myself. It was my calling to speak out, to challenge the status quo, and to awaken my community from their slumber. There lingered, however, the heavy weight of fear and uncertainty. What would happen when I shared my awakening? Would my family accept this new understanding or shun me for straying from the paths we once walked together? Despite these fears anchoring me, I felt an undeniable compulsion to forge ahead, to touch the hearts and minds of those still trapped within the confines of deception. The journey ahead was fraught with obstacles, but I could not ignore the truth that had been revealed to me. It was time to step into the light. The atmosphere was electric during the gathering in the marketplace. I could feel the tension in the air, a palpable mix of hope and anxiety. As a preacher, I knew that speaking about faith in today's world could trigger unexpected reactions, but nothing could prepare me for what happened next. I stood there, sharing the message of love and unity, when an enraged mob suddenly erupted among the crowd. The moment felt surreal, as if I had stepped into a nightmare. Angry shouts filled the air, drowning out my voice as I attempted to defuse the situation. The hostility came surging forward like a tidal wave, overwhelming me before I even grasped what was occurring. Within seconds, I was surrounded. Their faces were a blur of fury, and before I knew it, they were upon me, fists flying and voices demanding silence. I felt a sharp pain in my side as I stumbled, falling to the ground beneath the force of their aggression. The weight of fear and confusion pressed down on me, suffocating. I wanted to shout, to plead for understanding, but the noise was deafening. I was losing consciousness. My vision darkened, and suddenly, I was engulfed in an abyss of emptiness. A void where nothing existed, and I felt utterly alone. In that disorienting darkness, I began to sense a shift. It was as though a voice called to me from afar, drawing me toward a faint glimmer of light. The pull was irresistible, so I surrendered to it, floating forward, away from the chaos of my reality. I entered a realm where everything felt both strange and familiar, battling the heaviness that clung to my spirit. I felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. And then, in a breathtaking moment, I stood before a radiant figure, Jesus. His presence enveloped me like a warm embrace, filling the void with love and understanding. Akash, he said softly, calling me by name. In that moment, all fear dissolved, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. As I stood in his light, revelations began to pour into my consciousness, each more profound than the last. Jesus opened my eyes to the spiritual war that lay concealed beneath the surface of our world. I witnessed the deception that the elite wielded like a weapon, manipulating faith and divisions among us to maintain their power. The truths I saw were harrowing. The unseen struggles that defined our everyday lives, forcing people into cages of conformity. I realized that the fear I experienced so intimately was exactly what had been used to suppress those seeking liberation. I understood that every act of violence, each moment of intolerance I had experienced, was woven into a larger narrative designed to keep us blinded to the truth. This revelation ignited a fierce urgency within me. You must share this truth, Jesus emphasized, instilling a sense of purpose that I would carry back into my life. Your awakening is not meant to be solitary. It is a call to action. As he spoke, I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. I knew that I had to return to the world and confront the perceptions that had once defined my life. The doubts that loomed over my beliefs began to fade in the light of his understanding. My mission now felt clear. I would no longer allow the elite's hidden agenda to dictate the course of faith in my life or the lives of others. I had to be a beacon of truth, even if it meant risking everything I had ever known. Suddenly, I was pulled back to consciousness, gasping for breath on the marketplace floor. The sounds of the mob faded into the background as confusion enveloped me. I was alive, yet profoundly changed. The fear and anger that had once guided my existence dissipated, replaced by a fierce conviction to share my encounter and the revelations I had received. The battle to bring light into the darkness of deception had crystallized in my heart. I understood that the path ahead would not be easy. Confrontation and resistance awaited me, but the truth that had been revealed to me would guide me, urging me to be a warrior for awakening, ready to step into the spiritual war that continued to rage. In the aftermath of my awakening, the world around me shifted in ways I couldn't fathom. I had spent my life as a preacher in the vibrant streets of India, revered for my eloquence and devotion to my faith. However, when I began to question long-held traditions, I quickly found myself branded a heretic by those who once looked to me as a leader. The rejection from my community and my family stung more than I anticipated. I felt like an outcast traversing a desolate path, filled with guilt for abandoning the beliefs so many held dear, and yet compelled to pursue the truth that had been revealed to me. The spiritual war inside me raged on tirelessly, urging me to confront the fears that loomed large. Each day, the memories of my experience clung to me, shifting from comforting to suffocating. I often revisited the moment I encountered Jesus during my near-death experience, how his light illuminated the darkness surrounding my doubts. In that otherworldly realm, he showed me the hidden agenda of the elite, weaving a tapestry of deception that defined our existence. I could see the layers of manipulation that shackled my community, how fear was wielded to oppress rather than uplift. This revelation was not just a passing thought. It was now my reality, something I had to reckon with, though the burden felt unbearably heavy. As I tried to reintegrate into my life, the weight of my new understanding isolated me further. The loneliness was deafening, a reminder of all I had lost in my quest for enlightenment. Each encounter felt like a test, the fear of rejection hovering over every conversation. I felt compelled to share the truths I had learned, but found myself hesitating, afraid that my words would fall on deaf ears. The thought of standing alone against the tides of tradition filled me with dread. I yearned for connection, yet solitude loomed like a shadow I couldn't escape. I often turned to prayer, seeking comfort and guidance from the very God I felt distanced from. In those quiet moments, I would call out to Jesus, hoping for clarity, hoping for strength. I was haunted by dreams that reflected my fears, a tumultuous sea of faces, judgments rendered without compassion. But amid those nightmares, there were moments of clarity where hope flickered like a candle in the dark. I understood that this journey wasn't merely for myself. I was being called to bear witness, to ignite the flame of awakening in others. The urgency of that mission grew ever more palpable, and I resolved to confront the walls between me and my family, hoping that one day they would see the truth too. With newfound determination, I sought out others who shared my fears and questions. I connected with individuals, those once indifferent to the struggles of faith, who now craved understanding. In our clandestine meetings, we formed bonds of friendship that transcended our individual fears. Together, we shared our stories of awakening, emboldening one another to challenge the hidden agendas that sought to control us. Each testimony became a beacon of hope, a reminder that we were not alone in the fight against the deception that had long held our communities captive. I knew the path ahead would be rife with challenges, but with every step, the truth was beginning to take root in the hearts of those willing to listen. Determined to understand the unsettling revelations that had turned my world upside down, I set out on a clandestine journey to connect with a Christian community that welcomed those like me, individuals caught in the crossfire of faith and doubt. It felt like stepping into a new realm, one that was vibrant and alive with the spirit of awakening. These were not just strangers. They were kindred souls who had faced their own crises of belief. Sharing our stories, I felt a bond forming, a collective understanding of the spiritual war that plagued our hearts and minds. It was refreshing and terrifying all at once. In the shadows of their fellowship, I began to delve into the Bible with a sincerity I had never felt before. Each verse felt like a thread unraveling the tapestry of deception I had woven around my beliefs. I discovered the teachings of Jesus, his message of love and redemption resonating deeply within me, like a distant echo stirring to life. Alongside my newfound friends, I participated in group prayers that transcended the rituals I had adhered to previously. For the first time, I found myself truly praying to Jesus, pouring out my heart, fears, and doubts before him. The act of embracing this new form of worship ignited something powerful within my spirit, a spiritual rebirth that was both exhilarating and daunting. As I prayed, the weight of my old life began to dissolve, replaced by an overwhelming sense of clarity and purpose. I could see the hidden agenda that had dictated my previous existence, the elite who thrived on division and manipulation. My heart ached as I absorbed the truth. I had spent years upholding a system built on fear and conformity. The revelation that faith could be both a source of liberation and a tool of oppression became clear. I watched as my friends in this community began to awaken as well, our conversations layered with urgency as we explored the implications of our shared experiences. Each testimony revealed the deceptions we had faced, illuminating the dark corners of our pasts. Yet despite the light we were creating together, the fear of persecution still loomed large in my mind. I grappled with the potential backlash against my newfound beliefs, the thought of my family's disappointment gnawing at my spirit. I longed for their understanding, an acceptance of the path I had chosen. How could I stand firm in my truth when my family might see me as a traitor to our faith? Each interaction with those from my past felt heavy with unsaid words, a cloud of uncertainty that hovered over me. The dichotomy of my existence, between who I was and who I aspired to be, became a personal battle I had to confront. But within the depths of turmoil, I also felt an undeniable drive to share this awakening, to speak openly about my experiences. The realization that the spiritual war was not merely personal but woven into the fabric of society pushed me to act. I recognized that others needed to hear the truth I had encountered, that they too could break free from the chains of ignorance and manipulation. And so, I began to reach out, not just to those who were receptive, but to those who clung tightly to old beliefs. It was a daunting task, bridging the gap between comfort and truth. Yet each step felt necessary, each voice raised against deception, a powerful declaration that the time for awakening had come. In the aftermath of my near-death experience, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions, my mind replaying the violent moment when I was attacked. That day in the marketplace left me bruised, not only physically but also spiritually. I had been preaching about love and unity, but in an instant, I became a target of hate. When I collapsed, Conscious of the fists raining down on me, I didn't just face physical pain, I confronted a deeper confrontation with what I truly believed. During that terrifying ordeal, I had sunk into darkness, only to be rescued by the light of Jesus, who called my name and offered me profound revelations that turned my world upside down. As I struggled to reconcile that experience with the life I had known, a compelling sense of purpose began to emerge. I realized that my encounter with Jesus wasn't merely a personal awakening. It felt like a divine calling, a directive to share the truths he had revealed to me. Each revelation I received felt like a puzzle piece, assembling a larger picture of the spiritual war that raged within our communities. A war obscured by manipulation and deception. I began to see how the elite used religion as a tool, shaping narratives that kept us divided and fearful. The thought of doing nothing, of returning to silence, gnawed at my conscience. A fire ignited within me, urging me to speak out despite the dangers this new path could bring. The fear of persecution loomed large with each passing day. I knew I was stepping into treacherous territory, potentially setting myself against voices that demanded conformity. Yet, I understood that I could not keep the truth bottled up. The cost of discipleship meant challenging the status quo. I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me, a calling to awaken those around me from apathy and ignorance. But would my community embrace my revelations? Or would they cast me aside as a betrayer of tradition? Those thoughts lingered in my mind, causing deep anxiety amid the newfound clarity and purpose I felt. I dedicated myself to exploring the scriptures further, seeking out teachings that resonated with my new understanding. Each verse felt alive, guiding me through a labyrinth of questions I yearned to explore. I found support among a gathering of fellow seekers who had also awakened to the deceptions around them. Together we shared our stories, realizing that we were not alone in our desire for the truth. However, even amid that communal strength, there remained an undercurrent of anxiety. I was all too aware of what could happen if the wrong people learned about our discussions. The fear of backlash and rejection from my former brothers and sisters was a constant companion, but it spurred me on. By embracing this awakening, I felt a sense of liberation I had never known. I began organizing small gatherings, sharing my testimony of the spiritual war that we are all part of. In those meetings, fears turned to fervor as we encouraged each other to confront the hidden agendas shaping our lives. The stories we exchanged were rich with emotion, each one revealing the personal costs of pursuing the truth amid significant opposition. As I stood before them, I could feel the pulse of something powerful growing among us, a collective yearning for awakening in a world often shrouded in deception. I understood that this was just the beginning, the nurturing of a flame that could challenge the darkness and bring hope to the souls still wandering lost. The moment I decided to leave my home felt like stepping into the unknown, a leap fraught with fear and anticipation. I was Akash, a preacher in India respected for my commitment to faith, yet I felt the strings of my past tugging at my conscience. The violence I experienced in the marketplace had ignited something within me, a fierce awakening that urged me to break free from the chains of tradition. I sought a new identity, one that signified my transformation and the commitment I was making to embrace the truth I had discovered. In a bold act of defiance, I chose a new name that represented my newfound purpose, one that would resonate with my mission to spread the truth, no matter the cost. Crossing the threshold of my old life was both liberating and terrifying. As I walked away, the familiar sights of my village faded into the background, giving way to the uncertainty of the journey ahead. I felt the weight of the spiritual war pressing down on me. My heart was a battleground of emotions. Every step I took fueled my resolve to share the revelations that had shattered my previous beliefs. I realized that the hidden agendas of the elite, the deceptions that had long held my community captive, could only be countered with the truth I had encountered. As I ventured further into the world, each day presented challenges that tested my commitment. I felt the sting of loneliness as I navigated unfamiliar territories. My mission to evangelize wasn't easy. There were days I felt discouraged, grappling with the resistance I faced from those who clung to their traditions. Yet, every moment of hardship was met with the echoes of Jesus, reassurances in my heart. He had revealed to me the depths of love and understanding that transcended my prior convictions. I clung desperately to those memories, gathering strength from the light that had once illuminated my dark void. Amidst the struggles, I sought out others who had also stepped away from traditional beliefs. There was a shared connection, a community forming around the truth we were all searching for. Together we began to sow seeds of faith, planting stories of awakening that rippled through our corners of the world. My heart ached to help those still enveloped in deception, caught in the grips of manipulation. I shared my testimony, recounting the moment I stood before Jesus and the profound revelations he had shared with me. I wanted others to recognize the spiritual war that existed, to champion the love that transcended the chains of fear. But even as we gathered momentum, I couldn't shake the reality of my family's disapproval lingering in the back of my mind. Each time I thought of them, I felt a pang of sorrow, a longing for reconciliation. How could I share this new truth with them without being ridiculed or worse? Yet I knew I had to remain steadfast. My calling was clear: to awaken hearts and souls starved for the truth. The road ahead would be riddled with obstacles. But I understood that this spiritual journey was more than just about me. It was about igniting a change that could echo far beyond this moment. I felt the weight of destiny on my shoulders, poised at the brink of transformation, ready to face whatever challenges awaited me in this unfolding journey. Years have passed since that fateful day in the marketplace when the world seemed to slip away from beneath my feet. In the aftermath of the chaos, my life transformed in ways I never anticipated. I established a refuge, a sanctuary for individuals who felt lost and rejected, much like I once did. It's a place where stories converge and souls intertwine, all seeking the truth that had been obscured by the heavy shadows of deception. We've built a community that thrives on faith, a collective dedicated to awakening from the spiritual war that has long ensnared our hearts. Yet, despite the sense of belonging I found, an ache remains deep within me. I've poured my energy into this refuge, sharing my testimony of courage and transformation, helping others navigate their own crises of faith. I've watched in wonder as individuals who once felt paralyzed by doubt rise to embrace the awakening I had once stumbled upon. Each shared experience reinforces the truth that we are not alone in our struggles. The stories we exchange illustrate the hidden agendas that have sought to divide us, fostered by an elite desperate to maintain control. It's a revelation that compels me to persist in this mission, even as I grapple with the pain of disconnection from my family and the society that once embraced me. In those quiet moments of reflection, I find my thoughts drifting back to my family, faces filled with confusion and disappointment when I chose to leave my past behind. I carry the weight of hope that they might someday see the truth I've come to understand. I long for reconnection, yet the fear of rejection stirs within me, reminding me of the potential backlash if I were to share my new beliefs. The journey I undertook illuminated the deception, but it also revealed the cost of such discovery, the anguish of isolation that accompanies breaking free from tradition. Yet, in this refuge I've built, I feel the spirit of awakening coursing through our gatherings. Each interaction between us serves as a reminder that the spiritual war we face cannot be fought alone. As we unite, sharing our struggles against a backdrop of societal division, we reinforce one another's resolve. I find strength in the realization that our voices can shatter the chains of silence, amplifying the truth that has emerged from the depths of our souls. Together we become beacons of hope, challenging the lies that have suffocated our communities for far too long. As the weight of responsibility settles deeper into my heart, I sense an urgent calling. There's so much work to be done, not just to nurture our small community, but to challenge the foundations of the societal structures that sought to keep us in darkness. I felt Jesus' gentle presence urging me onward, reminding me that we are all part of a larger narrative. Tears well in my eyes when I think of those still trapped in fear and confusion. It drives me to be courageous, to forge deeper connections, and to risk everything for the sake of awakening others. This spiritual war demands warriors, and I am ready to face the unknown in pursuit of the truth that leads us all to true freedom. In the heart of a bustling marketplace in India, I was known as a preacher, someone who devotedly upheld traditions and guided others in matters of faith. My life revolved around the community, and I took immense pride in my role, yet beneath that exterior, a profound emptiness began to plague my soul. I felt a growing disconnect from the teachings I preached, grappling with doubts that clouded my understanding of spiritual truth. Every sermon felt like a facade, a performance to please those around me. While I spoke of love and acceptance, I was tormented by the hypocrisy I sensed within the very fabric of my community. One day, everything shifted dramatically. I found myself facing a violent mob, angry at my words, frustrated by my message of Jesus. I was beaten, my body taking the brunt of their rage. But it was in that moment of agony, as I lost consciousness, that the true conflict unfolded. I slipped into nothingness, and it was there, in the void, that I encountered the blinding light of Jesus. His presence enveloped me, infusing my spirit with warmth and compassion that filled the emptiness I had felt for so long. "Akash!" he called, the sound reverberating through my very being, cutting through the confusion with an undeniable clarity. In that sacred encounter, revelations poured into my consciousness like waves crashing against a shore, each one shattering the illusions I had held tightly. I witnessed the intricacies of the spiritual war tearing apart our society, how deception had been woven into the fabric of our lives, guiding us to blind obedience rather than true faith. The elite, I saw clearly, thrived on our ignorance, manipulating fear to control our thoughts and actions. I was shown the hidden agendas that dictated our understanding of faith, showing me how easily truth could be obscured beneath layers of lies. Each truth unveiled felt like a key unlocking the chains that had once bound my spirit. When I returned to consciousness, the world felt heavy with the weight of my revelations. I saw the faces of those who had rejected me, filled with contempt for my newfound beliefs, and the isolation stung deeper than ever. The price of awakening was steep, and I began to grapple with the consequences of sharing my experience. Would my family understand? Would they embrace my truth, or would they continue to see me as a traitor? The fear of being shunned lingered in the back of my mind, but the urgency to speak out burned even brighter. I had witnessed firsthand the power of divine truth, and I knew it was my calling to confront the spiritual war that raged outside and within. As I ventured forward, the courage to share my testimony became my banner. I sought out other seekers, those who had questioned the doctrines of the elite, those who longed for something more than the constraints of tradition. Together, we began to form a community, sharing our experiences and igniting the fires of awakening among us. The stories flowed, and with each shared revelation, I felt the bonds of isolation weaken. It was as if we were lighting candles in the darkness, illuminating the path for others still caught in the shadows. Yet, deep down, the fear of backlash remained, a reminder that each act of defiance against the hidden agendas could come at a price. In those moments of solidarity, I found strength and resilience, but the journey ahead was still daunting. I knew the challenges wouldn't cease. The battle for truth was ongoing, fraught with danger. As I prayed for guidance, I felt the presence of Jesus once again, reminding me of the importance of our mission. We were not just fighting for ourselves. We were fighting for the souls still lost in the spiritual war, longing for the light. I was determined to press on, to share my message, and to face whatever obstacles stood in the way, ready to reclaim the narrative and inspire awakening in a world yearning for truth. As I stand before you today, I am filled with a profound sense of urgency. My journey into the depths of despair and my miraculous return serve as a testament to the unseen battles we all fight, battles woven into the tapestry of our existence. In confronting the darkness that once consumed my spirit, I discovered the radiant truth of love, fellowship, and the divine calling urging us to awaken. And just as I was pulled from the brink by Jesus' light, I believe we are all being beckoned towards clarity, connection, and transformation. But I must ask you, have you ever felt a deep stirring within your spirit? An unsettling urge to question the very fabric of what you've been taught? Can you recall a moment when a whisper from within, or perhaps a voice from beyond, called you to seek, to explore, and to challenge the reality surrounding you? If so, I urge you to share your experiences in the comments below. Your stories matter, for they illuminate the path of awakening not only for you, but for countless others yearning to break free from the chains of limitation. As we navigate this profound journey together, I ask you to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. This isn't just about following a channel. It's about joining a movement, becoming part of a community that seeks to unveil the truth that exists in our hearts and through our actions. Each story shared, each video watched, can play a role in igniting the spark of awakening within you and those around you. Because the journey does not end here, it is only just beginning. In our next video, we'll delve into another incredible testimony of divine intervention, a powerful story of a woman who faced a spiritual crossroads and emerged transformed from the depths of despair. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for being here with me today. Remember, each of us has a role to fulfill in the grand narrative of awakening. I'm Akash, and I invite you to continue this journey alongside me, because together we are stronger. Together, we are the light pushing back against the darkness that seeks to consume us. Until next time, hold on to hope, for the truth always prevails.